And let's lock the position, minimize it, and let's go through. So, there's a lot of really interesting cards actually within Dragon's Maze. None of them are pictured. We're actually going to... Actually, let's start at... Alright. Scion of Vitu-Ghazi. Like, Burros Mastiff is going to be perfect in our Franker Z Hound deck. But besides that, I don't expect to see it played anywhere. Has the Snare Squad, should be good in a Soldier deck. This is a very early drop, but the fact that it's a Horned Turtle, it really puts me off and I don't want to play it. Liev Decree doesn't do enough. It's even a sorcery, so I mean, it should be a sorcery, so I can't put it under something like... So I can't get it with... Sunforger, and I can't put it under Icicon Scepter. Those two things already make me not want Liev Decree. Renounce the Guilds, though, is very interesting because you can put it under Icicon Scepter, but overall, the only reason I would really want to play it is to put it inside of a Sunforger package. I don't expect to see this card played at all, unless you're in a mono-white deck that can really kind of take advantage of it. But overall, when you're allowing people to sacrifice a permanent, even a multicolored permanent, more than likely they'll always choose the one you don't want them to choose. The same reason why I don't like Cruel Edict is the same reason why I don't like Renounce the Guilds. Riot Control is actually a pretty interesting card. I know a lot of people don't like these kind of cards, but it's just the right mixture of Safe Passage and Congregate that I actually think it might be pretty good. You get to gain 1 life for each creature your opponents control, which already means any tokens. If your opponent's already playing Avenger Zendikar or even playing a Gov deck, you know how many tokens can get onto the battlefield at once. Riot Control is actually not that bad of a card when it comes to multiplayer Magic, especially when it comes to something like DGM. Let me quickly... We're not testing Aurelia. We are doing an EDH. There we go. Kill this. Update that. There we go. Important. Alright, but overall, Riot Control doesn't really do much. Scion of Vitu-Ghazi is going to be our first card that really is going to see a lot of play in EDH. I honestly think this card's fantastic. So for 3 white, when he enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you put a 1/1 white bird creature token flying onto the battlefield and populate. I know there's already a lot of Tristani decks. This card only helps. Thankfully, it has a very important wording on it. It forces you to cast it from your hand, so we're not going to see any shenanigans with stuff like Conjurer's Closet. There won't be any Restoration Angel kind of things, but the card is still very, very, very solid. It's going to take the place of cards that aren't as good as it. Expect it to take the place of stuff like a Watch Wolf or things like that. It's still rather good, and it's one of the best things that come with Populate on it. I really do like it. Don't play Wake the Reflections, please. Just don't. Don't try and play it in Standard. The fact that the Selesnya event deck has Wake the Reflection doesn't mean you should play it. You can't even play it with Stang, so you might play it in Riff. I'm not. Just don't. Just don't play Wake the Reflection, please. It does nothing. Just nothing. Alright, here's actually 2 cards I really do like. Aetherling and Hidden String. So Aetherling, for 4 blue, it's a 4/5 shapeshifter. You can exile it for a single blue. You return it at the beginning of the next end step, so it dodges Wraths. And for a single blue, it's unblockable. And it has a +1/-1 and -1/+1 abilities that regular Morphling did. This may be our new Superman. It's a lot of people say it'll be good in Standard. I expect to see this a lot in very controlling decks. Expect to see this card when you're playing against something like Grand Arbiter. A deck that really takes a long time to kill people will love Aetherling. The only problem is, if you're trying to equip stuff onto it, it doesn't stay on. Thankfully, you can make it unblockable. So, this should be a whole bunch of fun. Not fun to play against, that is, but fun to play. It should be cool. It's like the only dragon in Dragon's Maze, which is kind of hilarious. I'm actually at my parents' house just going through some cards. Hidden Strings I actually like, especially in Hagur decks. So Hagur the Stillwind is the ninja legend. He's mono blue, If you haven't tried putting Cypher into a Higura the Stillwind deck yet, definitely check it out. You can make him unblockable, make ninjas unblockable, make Cypher so much easier to hit. Although this happens after you hit, so it's not as good as you would expect it to be. Being able to untap permanents lets you pretty much give your creatures vigilance. I really do like hidden strings in it. Don't. I'm just gonna quickly go through. So. I might be the only person that was excited about trait doctoring. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person that was excited about trait doctoring. I'm going to talk about it because I'm going to be the only person to ever talk about it. For a single blue, trait doctoring is a sorcery, and you can change the text to target permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another, or one basic land type with another until end of turn. It's also got Cypher. I just love that they made this effect again. You saw it with stuff like Glamour Die. It's really... I was going to say it's useful. It's not that useful, really, especially since you can't make something into an island the second time because you have to attack for Cypher to go off. It's so silly. I really do like this card. I don't expect to ever play it, but it should be fun. Winddrake's back. Uncovered Clues is actually a very interesting card. But with the high variance of instant and sorcery spells, I wouldn't exactly expect to play it. So, okay. I personally don't like Blood Scrivenger. I don't think it's that good. I don't really understand why everyone's getting their jimmies rusted by it. But I do expect to see it get played in a lot of zombie decks. The number one thing that zombie decks usually have trouble with is they run out of cards really quickly. A zombie deck will put a bunch of creatures onto the battlefield, and then they'll just stop. Blood Scrivenger goes around that. So for 1 in black, it's a zombie wizard, it's a 2/1, and if you draw a card while you have no cards in hand, instead of draw 2 cards and lose 1 life, this is rarely going to hit, but the times that it does work for you, it'll do a lot of work. I can't really think of any cards off the top of any generals off the top of my head that would like to utilize this ability, but I would expect to see it in some zombie decks, just as a substitution for cards that really don't do anything in those kind of decks. So Crypt Incursion is actually a very interesting card. I know Sheldon mentioned this in his most recent article, but he did bring up a very good point. If you're going back to zombie decks, if you've ever played with cards like Living Death or decks that really, really, really love doing reanimation strategies, one of the hardest things to do when you're playing Living Death is when you end up against a Crush deck, and they also have a graveyard you don't want to come back, or you're playing against an Elf deck that has a graveyard you don't want to come back. Crypt Incursion actually gets around that. So for 2 in a black, you get to exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard, and you get to gain 3 life for each creature exiled this way. I wouldn't expect to gain more than 9 or 12 life off this card. But if you're using a deck that really wants to bring stuff out of your graveyard, especially with symmetrical effects, Crypt Incursion actually does real things. So definitely look for it, again, if you're playing a deck that wants to be playing Living Death, if you're playing a deck that wants to be playing Praetor's Council, Crypt Incursion is going to be the best way to make sure you can do those things safely. Fatal Fumes, I wouldn't really look at. Hired Torturer, just for the flavor value, is actually pretty good. Maze Abomination is cute. Alright. Maybe my favorite card in this set, Pontiff of Blight, is a zombie cleric. He's a 2/7 for 4 black, which, let's be honest, is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So he's got Extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay a white or black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. Additionally, other creatures you control have Extort. So, if you don't know, Extort stacks. So if I have a Basilicus creature and I play Pontiff of Blight, my Basilicus creature has 2 instances of Extort. If I only have Pontiff of Blight and Basilicus creature on the battlefield, and I decide to play this Rakdos Drake, I can play 3 extra mana and deal 3 to each opponent and gain 3 life, and gain life for each damage done that way. Just really want to establish how Extort stacks. This card looks like a lot of fun. It's going to go in specific decks. I wouldn't expect this card to go in aggressive decks. I don't expect to see this card in zombie decks. But in any deck that really wants to be controlling, especially Grixis decks that have a large amount of creatures, which they're rare, I would expect to see Pontiff of Blight. Additionally, with the amount of Extort cards that did get printed, I would like to reiterate, you will be seeing more Ghost Council decks, a lot more white-black decks that are focused on the ability of extorting, because it's so strong in multiplayer. Expect to see cards like Pontiff of Blight multiple times, and if you can, copy them, because it's always fun to do. Also, Doink brings up a good point. Doran would really like a good old Pontiff of Blight, makes him into a 7/7, and you can just keep utilizing that ability. I'm going to talk about all for the guilds, both in Limited and in EDH. Just to warn you, all for the guilds is actually kind of good in Limited as a falter effect. In EDH, it's also a pretty good falter effect. If you're looking to get in that last 10 damage, more than likely all for the guilds will actually allow you to do that. There are so many better ways to do it, but if you're playing like a standard legal deck or a modern deck even, all for the guilds may be your best way to create a falter effect in your certain meta. Just want to show you a card that a lot of people aren't talking about for this deck. Yeah, it's a reprinted something. It is a reprinted tunnel in clear path. That's kind of hilarious. I'm not really... So, you'll see I'm skipping over a lot of these multicolored creatures you control have X. Mostly because they're bad on their own. But also because the one I would want would be this Maze Rusher, which gives all my multicolored creatures haste. The thing is, for 6 mana, there's just so many other better things that could be playing instead of him. Just putting it out there. So let's talk about Possibility Storm. For 3 red, whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it. A lot of people keep thinking it's only yourself. It is whenever a player. Then they exile cards from the top of their library until they exile a card that shares a card type with it. That player may cast a card without paying its mana cost. Then he or she puts all cards exiled with Possibility Storm on the bottom of his or her library in a random order. Oh, excuse me. Actually, Possibility Storm is a super interesting card. It kind of reminds me of Knowledge Pool, where you actively try and get around the ability to force your opponents to play into it. It's another one of those cards that, like Knowledge Pool, is good with stuff like Cursive Exhaustion. It does mess up control decks, mostly because if you land a Possibility Storm and they try and counter your spell with an instant, more than likely they won't Possibility Storm into another instant spell, so you more than likely the cards you cast won't be countered after you cast Possibility Storm. The only thing is, just like Knowledge Pool, it's going to prevent you from having a direct plan for what you're doing. Unless you're playing Possibility Storm in a deck chock full of creatures, so you know what you're going to be getting, it's going to be a very high variance deck, a very high variance card. A lot of people like high variance cards. If you look at the amount of just red Chaos decks, I'm sure a lot of people fainted when Possibility Storm got previewed. I'm also a fan, but it seems... I think Crimson puts it best. It looks bad, but so much fun. Let's talk about Pyrowild Shaman, because this guy's cool. For 2 and a red, he's a 3/1, but for 1 and a red, you can discard him to get target attacking creature +3/+1 until end of turn as a Blood Rush effect, and whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you can, if he's in your graveyard, you can pay 3 and return him to your hand. Expect this guy to see play in aggressive Goblin decks. Besides that, I can see it being played in a deck like Aurelia, just because with the multiple attack steps, you're able to use Pyrowild Shaman more than once. It's a good thing it only gets +3/+1 and doesn't confer something like Trample or First Strike. That would be obnoxious. The card is good to... It's decent to good. Don't expect to see it a lot, but when it does hit the battlefield, it probably will have a very high impact. Additionally, it can just block multiple times, so be aware. If you don't know yet, Weapon Surge is really good in Limited. Like, really good in Limited. I wouldn't really play it in EDH. You don't need First Strike that badly. But, card's really good. Just really, really, really good. Just, Weapon Surge is annoying as hell. Very annoying. I'm just not going to open it. Ah, that was fantastic. Okay, I like it. I'm a fan. I wouldn't expect to see Battering Krasis in any deck that doesn't really want to utilize Evolve a bunch. Also, be aware it has Trample, for those of you that want to play limited with it. Also, Crow Warrior is going to be great for those insect decks. That's it. And I definitely meant Evolve. Did I say Infect? I definitely meant Evolve. So now let's talk about Renegade Krasis. For 1 green, it's a 3/2 Beast Mutant with Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever Renegade Krasis evolves, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So I really do like Renegade Krasis for a single reason. Cathar Crusade exists, and it's fantastic in a deck with Gov. One of the main things with a card like Renegade Krasis is that you're playing in a deck that has the ability to put +1/+1 counters onto creatures. Whether it be Experiment Craj, whether you're playing, again, Gov decks, whether you're just playing Green-White Tristani decks that have cards like Cathar's Crusade, being able to put +1/+1 counters on creatures is super simple. So just evolving Renegade Krasis and just giving all of your creatures +1/+1 is an amazing ability to do. Additionally, I would look for this card to see play in a deck like 4/7 Vigilance Selesnya for 8. You can pay X whenever you cast a creature to give that creature X +1/+1 counters on it. Who can name it? Because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Conclave. Yes. Chorus of the Conclave. Would actually love to run a good old Renegade Krasis. Makes all the cards be able to have +1/+1 counters on it. Skylasher isn't a card I expect to see in EDH. It's one of those cards that's not made for a casual format. Granted, it's a really damn good insect, which is nice. Let's talk about Advent of the Worm. Because Advent of the Worm is a real thing. For 1 green, white, it's an instant that puts a 5/5 green worm creature token with Trample onto the battlefield. Perfect for Selesnya decks. Just perfect for catching really low cost commanders off guard. If someone's trying to get in their like free attack with a 2, 3, or 4 cost commander, Advent of the Worm is there to stop them in their tracks. If you have a friend that's just being really annoying playing Skullbriar, play Advent of the Worm. If you have a friend that's playing a really annoying red deck, play Advent of the Worm. It just blocks so many things. And like once people know it exists in your deck, they just don't attack you anymore, which is fantastic. Like I can't think of anything better. It's going to be a nightmare playing Standard while this card is still in Standard, because you can no longer attack into 4 open mana. So, yeah. And it's not even dual color. So, yeah. Delays about 5 seconds. That makes sense. I actually really like Alive and Well. I actually really like a lot of the split cards. That probably shouldn't surprise you, but the utility you can get out of them is amazing. Alive and Well, for those that don't want to tilt your head, is 3 and a green for Alive. Just gives you a 3/3 Centaur. And for a single white, you can get Well, which I think might be the stronger one, because you gain 2 life for each creature you control. Expect to see this in Tristani decks, but beyond that, expect to see this in any deck that's really token-based. I really do like the Well part of this deck. I wish I could play it in a deck like Vertaloth, but I would instead expect to see it a lot in a deck like Rift the Awakener. The ability to get a 3/3 for 4, although not great, is something you will do on turn 4 if you have nothing else to do. But the ability late game, if you have 6 creatures on the battlefield, to just gain 14 life, is actually much better than it seems like it is. The rules of split cards is that it This card has a green-white identity, so you can't play it in a deck like Vertaloth, you can't play it in a deck like Acroma, but you can play it in a deck like Chorus of the Conclave. Yeah, also this is a guy, so it can't be Tolsimir. Armed and Dangerous is actually really, really, really good. And there's a reason why. So for one, in red, the left part of Armed says target creature gets +1/+1 and gains double strike until end of turn. And the right part of Armed and Dangerous is for 3 and a green. It's a lure effect. All creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. So when a lot of people see Armed and Dangerous, they think, why would I there's two different ways to play it. One of the ways is, and the ways a lot of people think it is, oh, I'm going to have a huge creature, I'm going to give it +1/+1 and kill all my opponent's creatures. The other way to do it is it gives you a taunting elf, and you can kill the other person with commander damage. I'm 100% going to run this card in Borborygmos, mostly to kill everything with Armed and Dangerous, but also to give Borborygmos double strike, get that first attack in, give all my creatures +1/+1, and then force them to block a single creature with that dangerous part of the ability. I would absolutely hate to see this if I can put Dangerous onto anything with double strike. Should be a whole bunch of fun. Just look into running Armed and Dangerous into decks that can really utilize it. You don't want to run it in a deck that doesn't have creatures that can deal a large amount of damage on their own. Very important that you can get in a huge swing with it at once. I'm not going to talk about the Elf Knight for 5. And Ascended Law Mage, although cool, I kind of want to call it Tom Martell. Because it's a flyer, and it's a Law Mage. But, oh, and I'm talking about Borborygmos, not Borborygmos the Enraged. Thanks, Crimson. Let's talk about Beckon Call. Most people are going to play it for Beck. And the fact that it's limited to Bant and EDH is probably a very good thing, because just having Beck and EDH would be definitely something I don't want to play against, especially against an Edric deck. Regardless, Beckon Call, for a green and a blue, whenever a creature enters the battlefield this turn, you may draw a card. Really important to understand that, although it's a sorcery, unless you're playing something like Leyline of Anticipation, or you're playing a card like Leyline of Anticipation, if you can cast this card at instant speed, maybe even with Quicken, you can take advantage of your opponent's creatures that are in the battlefield. Just putting it out there. But most of the time, you're just going to Beck and then cast your own creatures. Expect to see this in Bant Elf decks. This might actually make Bant Elf decks a thing. Call for 4 white and a blue. You get to put 4 1/1 birds onto the battlefield. If you fuse Beck and Call, you put 4 1/1s into play and draw 4 cards for 8. That's not that great. Expect to see Beck cast 90% of the time. Call will be cast whenever you cast Beck and Call. The next card I want to talk about is definitely Blasted Genius. I just absolutely love this card. For 4 blue-red, you choose a creature or player and draw 3 cards. Then discard a card. It deals damage equal to discarded cards converted mana cost of that creature or player. I can't wait to run this in Izzet decks. It also has fantastic Therese Nielsen art, which is pretty cool. The ability to discard high-cost permanents and just have a good thing to do. Like, this is a lot of cards, when we talk about an EDH, we talk about how they aren't good top decks. Blasted Genius has to be one of the best top decks in the game. Although, sometimes you might just discard a land, most of the times you'll discard something that will give you extra value. This card is just super, super, super fun. I can't wait to play with Blasted Genius. Blaze Commando. So, if you've ever played with a card like Hostility, you'll understand the power of something like this. For 3 red white, it's a Minotaur Soldier, so for those that want a Minotaur, here you go. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control deals damage, put 2 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens with haste onto the battlefield. Really important thing to understand is that it doesn't matter any type of damage, so if you're just flame jabbing people, you're getting 2 1/1 red and white soldier creatures with haste, which is pretty fantastic. He's going to be in very, very, very specific decks. I think I will absolutely love this guy in any deck that's running a Sunforger package, because you're already playing cards like Searing Blaze, and you're probably already playing cards like Lightning Helix, which makes Blaze Commando that much better. When I'm able to get 2 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens just by activating my Sunforger, I really like Blaze Commando. So that's definitely something to look at. Let's talk about Blood Baron of Viscopa. A lot of people are really excited for this card. I really don't know why. Oh, Searing Blaze would only get you 2/1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens. I just want to put that out there. So it doesn't deal damage twice, it only deals damage once. You'd only get 2. But you still get 2, which is great. It's perfect. Anyways, Blood Baron of Viscopa. For 3 white black, this is a 4/4 life linking protection from white and from black vampire. Additionally, as long as you have 30 or more life and an opponent has 10 or less life, Blood Baron gets +6/+6 and has flying. That ability will never trigger. So, play this card because you want a life-linking protection from white and black vampire. If you're playing white-black vampires in a Sorin, in a deck that loves playing your Sorin, the Lord of Innistrad, and stuff like that, go for it. That's going to be the deck you want to play with Blood Baron of Viscopa. Don't depend on this guy ever becoming a 10/10 flyer. It'll happen like 5% of the time. Granted, the times it does happen, it's going to be awesome. But overall, he's just a good creature in your deck. Please don't get that mythic rare glaze when you're like, oh, it's a mythic rare, I have to put it in this deck. It's not going to do much. It's going to hose some decks because it's got protection from white and black, but overall, it's really just a 4/4 that I can block with a Paleoloth. Just understand, he's okay. Not fantastic. Like, move the sliding scale down, everybody that keeps telling me to put this guy in decks, to like a 6 out of 10. Alright, but let's talk about another Minotaur. Oh, the rarity is located right on the right over here. Gold would be a rare, silver would be an uncommon, black is a common, and this weird purplish hue is mythic rare. That's the best way to tell. So, let's talk about the best Minotaur in the set. And that's Boros Battleshaper. 5 red white 5/5 rare Minotaur soldier. At the beginning of each combat, up to 1 target creature attacks or blocks this combat if able, and up to 1 target creature can attack or block this combat. Super, super, super good card. We saw how powerful this ability was when you look back in Gatecrash at Victorious Herald, where you're able to use an ability at the beginning of every single combat. Boros Battleshaper destroys, absolutely wrecks combat for all of your opponents. I know it costs 7, I know it's a 5/5, but Jesus Christ, Boros Battleshaper deals just your opponents no longer get to play the game. Like, you can prevent your opponent from attacking with their Inferno Titan and force them to attack with their Scavenging Ooze. You can force someone to block with their Mother Runes when they don't want to, and you can force someone to attack with their Wirewood Herald. Like, seriously, Boros Battleshaper is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic card. I can't wait to get a foil one of these, and I'm immediately putting this into decks. It's a great card. I expect to see this in America decks, blue, red, white decks, mostly because those are the kind of decks that really look to control the board. If you're looking to control the game, Boros Battleshaper is the card you want. I'm pretty sure you've been seeing this really creepy art on the right while I've been talking about this card, because I just absolutely... this art's creepy as hell. Howdy, Captain Joe. Let's talk about breaking and entering. So for blue and a black, if you like Glimpse the Unthinkable, here's a smaller version. Target player puts the top 8 cards from his or her library into his or her graveyard. Entering is probably the more important one. For 4 black red, you get to put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and it gains haste until end of turn. Sheldon, in his most recent article, talked about how he's going to be replacing Beacon of Unrest and all of his Grixis decks with breaking and entering. I don't exactly agree with that, because Beacon of Unrest can still grab artifacts, which can be rarely important, but when it is important, is game-breakingly important. Entering is still a very good card. I'm not going to talk about breaking, because if you're playing a Grixis Mill deck, you're running it anyways, but Entering's a fantastic card. Number 1, you don't have to sacrifice a creature in a combat. Number 2, it gives it haste. Both are really important abilities when it comes to this part of the game. It's a great card to get off the top of your library. It's a fantastic top deck. It really, really, really look for breaking and entering. You see a lot of play, especially since it's a promotional card for the set. That was horrible, Dakuten. That was horrible. All right. Jesus Christ. Bred for the Hunt for 1 green blue. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. I actually want to highlight this card because it's not going to be as good as people think it is. You can make decks that are built around grafting, built around evolving, and you can really get this guy to work if you really, really, really try hard. But most of the time, this is the kind of card that sits on the battlefield for an EDH table, and everyone just kind of looks at it, and it's just kind of like, it doesn't really do enough. To do an analogy for draft, it's the 23rd card in your EDH deck. It's a card that you put in because you want to try out, but you realize it just doesn't do anything. Bronzepeak Moa is interesting, but I wouldn't expect to play it. Let's talk about Carnage Gladiator, because I love this guy. For 2 black red, he's a skeleton warrior, he's a 4/2, and whenever a creature blocks, that creature's controller loses 1 life. And for 1 black red, you can generate Carnage Gladiator. This is actually a pretty cool effect. I know it dies to Wraths, and we're about to get to like my favorite card. We're about to get to Debridge Champ, but it's very aggressive. If you're playing a black-red deck, especially if you're playing the new black-red general, Levissi the Blood Witch. I don't know how to pronounce her, but Carnage Gladiator is actually going to be a good way to punish your opponents for trying to survive the mid game if you're playing a very aggressive black-red deck. Just look out for it. Ixava, sorry, yeah, Ixava, yeah, she's hard to pronounce. Also, yeah, I guess Blood Wishes. Let's talk about catch and release. Pro tip: I love all the fuse cards, except for like one of them, but I love catch and release as well. So catch for 1 blue and a red, you get to gain control of target permanent until end of turn. Untap it. It gains haste until end of turn. And then for release, for 4 red white, each player sacrifices an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, and a planeswalker, which is actually a very interesting ability. If I'm playing America, I'm usually casting this for the catch ability. I've had the joy of joys of stealing someone's planeswalker when it's about to ultimate and ultimating it myself. Now you don't have to spend 3 red to do it. You can just play 1 blue-red to do it. I'm not putting this in every America deck I own. I'm not going to put it in my Goat Shaman. I'm probably going to put it in a rather aggressive deck, just because catch is a very useful ability. You get to gain permanence. This can be, you can grab someone's Cathar's Crusade. You can grab someone's Akroma's Memorial. You can do a lot of stuff with catch and release. Look out for the blowouts from this card. Council of Absolute is horrible, and they're writing manatees. So yeah. Also, you can't name a creature a land card, so the thing you can do with Voidstone Gargoyle, where you prevent your opponents from playing their general, can't happen. The only reason you would really cast this spell is if you're playing a Warp World deck. Yeah, this card's not good in EDH. I'm not a fan at all. You feel it's underrated? Well, hey. When you beat me with it, I'll give you all the credit in the world. It is a little bit underrated because it has the fantastic creature type of Advisor, but besides that, I can't really get behind it. I don't think it's that good. A lot of people miss that it says you can't name a creature or land. That is super, super important, especially in EDH, where what you're trying to do with this kind of card is preventing your opponent from playing their general, and you can't do it. Let's talk about one of the coolest cards in the entire set, Deadbridge Chant. For 4 black and a green, I'm sure you've seen it because I freaking love this card. It's a mythic rare enchantment. You can tell because of the orangish reddish color on the right, over here, right there. When it enters the battlefield, you get to put the top 10 cards of your library into your graveyard. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature, you put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, you put that card into your hand. Additionally, Chaos Muse is 100% correct. That's some fantastic Zoltan Boros art. This card is super fun. It's what I want to do in EDH when I'm playing decks. If I'm playing, it's going in the upkeep deck. I can 100% confirm that. But beyond that, it's fantastic in a Mimeoplasm deck. It's fantastic in a Damia deck. It's fantastic in a Velral's the Scar Stripe deck. Like, this card does everything you want. And if somehow you get to the point in the game where there's no cards in your graveyard, if you selectively exile your own graveyard, you can just do a janky Tameo emblem and get the same card back all the time. It's bonkers. Just, this card is a whole bunch of fun. I can't wait to utilize it. I can't wait to use it. There will be one annoying thing. Choosing a card at random from your graveyard is always annoying. Thankfully, it doesn't care about graveyard order, which is super great because those cards are happily gone. Carador is fantastic with this guy too. Good point. This card looks like a whole bunch of fun. I can't wait to play in EDH. Not annoying on Moto, which is great. Let's talk about a card I'm really scared of. That's the Deathless. So for X, white, white, black, black, with some fantastic Seb McKinnon art. Just some of the best art in the set is featured on this innocuous uncommon. It's a sorcery, and each opponent loses 2 times X life. And you get to gain life equal to life lost this way. One of the main things about black decks, besides the fact that they have a myriad of tutors, is it's so easy to double your mana in black. And if you're playing black-white, you already know how easy it is to exsanguinate out a table. It's so much easier to get to the Deathless out of table. I am not looking forward to playing against this card. It's going to be so annoying. I'm actually not putting it in the opposite at deck. Like, it's not too good, but damn is it good. I just don't think it's going to be that fun to play. So I'm not looking forward to playing it. A Deputy of Acquittals, no one's really talking about it. It's actually a kind of cool card. For white and a black, it's a flash. For white and a blue, it's a flash 2/2. If you've ever seen White Mane Lion, this is White Mane Lion, but with a May. Also, it's a wizard. Funnily enough, it's actually a pretty useful creature type in EDH. Wizards and humans as well. Also, being able to rebuy your creatures is still pretty strong. I'm not saying you're going to see it everywhere. I am going to say don't forget about this card like a year from now when you're looking for the ability to bounce back your cards. Also, comes back off a Revel Arc, so that's always fun. Is this the one I don't like? Yeah! So Down and Dirty is like the one fuse card I actually don't like. But it's a cool card. It's good in Pauper EDH, but I don't really want to go over it. I'm tired of tilting my head to read these cards. Dragon Shift. 1 blue red. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a 4/4 blue and red dragon, loses all abilities, and gains flying. And you can overload this card for the one-time low price of 7 mana. Oh yeah, it's not good in Pauper EDH because it's an uncommon. Good. Good point. Debt to the Deathless. Sorry, since we just went over it, art's fantastic. I am really not looking forward to playing against this deck. If I'm playing against a white-black deck, and I know they're playing Debt to the Deathless, I will kill them without impunity. Like, that card has me so scared. But, speaking of Dragon Shift, I really don't like that it makes your creatures loses all abilities. I don't think that part of the card was necessary. Thankfully, it's an instant, so after blockers, if your opponent says, I don't block your team of 1/1 weirds, you get to Dragon Shift them out. I think my favorite usage with Dragon Shift is actually Elemental Prowess. I believe that's the name of this card. Let me just double check. Nope, it's called Elemental Mastery. So for 3 in a red, you get an enchanted creature. You can tap to put X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haze onto the battlefield, where X the creature's power. With abilities like on Elemental Mastery, understand you can really abuse Dragon Shift. But that's only one card out of your entire deck. So overall, I'm really not a big fan of Dragon Shift. And as the only card that I think makes dragons, just Drown in Filth is an interesting card. I don't like it because it's way too high variance. But if you're looking for more abilities that do this type of thing, definitely go for it. Let's talk about Amira Tandris. So I'm sure you're sitting behind your keyboard at home and you're like, Tom, aren't you angry about how shitty this card is? It could have been so much better. And then next thing you're going to say is, hey, Tom, did you hear about how this used to be Voice Resurgence, but they didn't have enough Mythic Rare slots? So instead of putting a Mythic Rare, so instead of making Ral Zarek the Mythic Rare, is it Maze Runner, they instead made him the Maze Caller and put a lot of cards at Mythic Rare that used to be rare and put a lot of rares that were Mythic Rare into rare. Let's not talk about Amira. This card isn't that great. I've really looked at all ways to make an interesting Amira Tandris deck, and every single time the only thing that comes back is that she can kill a Crawworm. Just, it's not that great. Yeah, for one more mana you could have Avacyn. Like, let's be honest, guys. We're not playing Amira Tandris. A sad miss for our Selesnya Maze Runner. Is she the highest toughness elf? I think she might be. Alright, so let's get away from Amira. Let's actually just remove her name from the slide. Go. Amira's gone. She doesn't exist anymore, guys. She doesn't exist. No, we haven't talked about the new taster. We're just going straight in alphabetical order. We're going to talk about Exava. Exava Rakdos Bloodrich. For 2 black and red, this is a first strike hasty human cleric, because human clerics are usually first strike and haste and unleash. And each other creature you control with +1/+1 counter on it has haste. I really like this card. I like her as a very aggressive general. The final ability on her is very good if you intend to use it, but overall, Exava is just going to be a card where you kill people with her. If I'm making an Exava EDH deck, I'm intending to kill you. Like, when I cast this creature, I'm hitting you for 4. Next turn, I'm suiting her up wherever I can. I'm hitting you harder and harder every single time. Do not underestimate the fact that she has first strike. A lot of people just, it's the first thing on the card, and they miss it immediately. Seriously, guys. She's got first strike. She's going to be hard as hell to block. Watch out. She's going to kill a lot more people than I think. She's going to kill a lot of people. Don't let Exava take you under unawares. I'm not saying she's probably not going to be the most powerful general you play against, but there are going to be games when Exava just 1-2-3s you. Far and away, though, is far and away one of the best fuse cards. I just wanted to say it. It's an instant. I didn't know it was an instant. For the longest time, I thought it was a sorcery, by the way. So the first part is far. For 1 in a blue, you get to bounce something. And for 2 in a black, target player sacrifices a creature. Since this is the first card, we're gonna always fuse. Let's talk about fuse real quick. You can only fuse cards from your hand. You cannot, I repeat, cannot flash back a fuse card and cast both sides. You cannot use Future Sight and fuse a card from the top of your deck. You can only fuse a card from your hand. Does it make that card worse? No, it just makes it okay. Or Sunforger, another very good card to call out here. Far and Away is really fun because I think the best way to utilize this card is if you're playing against something Earl, where they'll have like a Llanowar Elf and they'll have an Earl the Miststalker, and you're like, damn it, I can't make my opponent sacrifice that Earl the Miststalker because I have a shitty card like Cruel Edict in hand. And then you're like, wait, instead I played a good card like Far and Away, and I can bounce the Llanowar Elf and force my opponent to sacrifice their Hexproof General. I really do like Far and Away. Have fun playing it. Feral Animist is coming back with new art. I've never been a big fan of Feral Animist. I'd rather be playing Wilderness Elemental in this spot, but hey, if you like your Goblin Shamans red and green, he's here for you. Let's talk about Flesh and Blood. Man, I really love heavy multicolor sets. They're just Christmas, aren't they? Anyways, it's another fuse card, and we're probably fusing this card. Maybe not. Let's see what we do with it. How do you run it on water? For 3 black and a green, this is flesh. You get to exile target creature card from a graveyard. From a graveyard, not just your graveyard. Please remember it's from a graveyard. Don't get stuck with this card in hand and say something like, huh, I don't have any targets. Because you do have targets. It's from any graveyard. You get to put X +1/+1 counters on target creature where X is the power of the card you exiled. Blood, for red and a green, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So, Poliendo mentioned this card is fantastic in Crash, and I'm going to reiterate, this card is fantastic in Crash. Don't get mixed up. This does not count as general damage, even though that creature deals the damage. General damage is explicitly combat damage, but in a deck that's focused on playing creatures that are like 20/20s, being able to play a card like Blood to deal that damage to a creature, to a creature or player is really, really, really powerful because you won't have to sack them. Being able to even fusing this card is super great because you get to put the +1/+1 counters on the creature you want to utilize and then use Blood to deal the damage. Remember, if you fuse a card, you do read it from left to right. You're going to have fun with this guy. I think this card's very good. There are going to be times when this card does sit in your hand, just doesn't do anything. Don't be discouraged in just using it as both a removal spell and a pump spell, or either. Also, it's a sorcery. Remember, it's a sorcery. We're not going to talk about Flux Charger, although it's a really cool card. But we can talk about Gaze of Granite. This is a rare? I thought this was mythic. This is a rare. For X, black, green is a rare sorcery, and you can destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X or less. I would like to establish this is non-land, so you finally get to hit Planeswalkers. We finally get to hit Planeswalkers, which is awesome. It's expensive, but since you're probably casting this on 7 and you're getting a bunch of 4 drops, I still like it. It's definitely cheaper than it's going to be cheaper in cost than Pernicious Deed. It's not as good as Pernicious Deed because Deed can sit around and you can use it whenever as a Rattlesnake kind of card, but it's definitely a good card. You're going to hit a lot of things with Gaze of Granite, and you're going to do a lot of very, very, very good things for you with Gaze of Granite. Whew. Which one do I want? I guess we should just keep going. Let's go with Give and Take. We're fusing this card too, guys. For 2 and a green, Give puts 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature, and Take for 2 and a blue removes all +1/+1 counters from target creature you control, and you get to draw that many cards. Don't fall into the trap when it comes to split cards, where you want to always use a split card on the same creature. When I'm playing a card like Give and Take, I want to play in a card like Prime Speaker Zagana. I want to give something like Champion Lambholt 3 +1/+1 counters, and then draw 6 cards by removing those counters from something like Prime Speaker. Just have fun. I can hear Mimeoplasm. It's a good card. Oh, Jesus Christ, this card's good on Mimeoplasm. I didn't even think of that. That's a whole lot of damage. Yep, that's awesome. All right. Wait, no, Mimeoplasm doesn't do +1/+1 counters, right? Never mind. Trying to sucker me into things. That's not nice. Nope. It does give +1/+1 counters on it. I lied. I 100% lied. Mimeoplasm does things. I thought it was Phyrexian Ingester for a little bit there. That's my bad. So yeah, Give and Take, definitely good on Mimeoplasm. A card that not a lot of people are talking about that I think is very good, and a card I immediately put into my Aurelia deck is actually Gleam of Battle. For 4 red and a white, it's an enchantment. Whenever a creature control attacks, you get to put +1/+1 counter on it. I actually think this card's rather good. The persistent effect of being able to do this is really strong, especially if you're using anything like Double Strike. Gleam of Battle is good. It's not a fantastic card, but it's good. Yeah, give and take isn't an instant. Probably a good thing. Please don't play Goblin Test Pilot. Not that it's a bad card, because it is a bad card, but Jesus Christ, is getting a random thing annoying as heck. Just don't, just, just don't do Goblin Test Pilot. It's like one of the most fun cards printed in this set, and I do not want to play against it at all. Because figuring out a random target is annoying. Just so annoying. Ugh. Alright, I would like to say the card that's better than Gleam of Battle is probably Gruul War Chant. For 2 red and a green, each attacking creature you control gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. You may have seen this card called Gorilla War Drums, and now for a single green, your attacking creatures get +1/+0 instead. This ability is actually very strong. It's really good and limited, by the way. If you don't know yet, Gruul War Chant, really, really good and limited. Just putting it out there. But in EDH, Gruul War Chant makes your creatures evasive in the best way possible and gives them extra power. Fantastic in token decks. I love playing a card like this after something like a simple card like Avenger, or even something like just Sprout Swarming a bunch, and then attacking into your opponent, and them realizing they can't just chump with their 1/1s, and then unless they have twice as many creatures as you do, you're getting in that damage. This card is rather good. Oh, 100 Night Veil's actually a pretty cool spirit. It doesn't have flying, even though it's not in the pantheon level of creatures that should have flying because they look like they have flying. Like, there's certain cards that should have flying because of the art. But Haunter of the Night Veil is like, if there's a pyramid of like the levels with Sovereigns of Lost Alara on top, Hunter of the Night Veil is like in the middle of the pyramid. So for 3 blue and a black, creatures your opponents get -1, -0, and it's a 3/4. I don't actually like this card that much in EDH unless you have a Tribal Spirit deck, but it's a fun card to look at. Jelen Sphinx is good and limited. Let's continue. If you're making a Sphinx deck, though, you get another Sphinx, which is cool. So when I looked at Corrose the Gorgon, it's a 3 black and a green for a 2/5 Gorgon with Death Touch. You can pay 2 to remove a +1/+1 counter from creature control. Target creature gets -1, -1 until end of turn. I still have no idea what the uses are for Corrose the Gorgon. I'm excited to find out what they are. I can't wait to see people playing this in decks and killing people with them. I can kind of see it in a deck like Tribal Saprolings or Tribal Fungus, or in a deck like Gov, but beyond that, I'm not expecting good things out of it. You do have to pay 2. That's the thing. You have to pay 2. Crisis Incubation is just cool because the art's really freaking creepy. Hey, we got another legendary creature. Woo! Lavinia the 10th. 3 white blue for a legendary human soldier with protection from red, and it's a 4/4. When she enters the battlefield, you get to obtain each non-land permanent your opponents control with CMC 4 or less. Lavinia is strong in EDH because as your commander, you can easily build around it. You can flicker cards. You can make sure your opponents just never get to utilize their permanents with 4 or less. Really important thing to note here. Make sure your opponents aren't using their soul rings after you use it. They aren't using their dark soul ingots after you use this. Make sure your opponents aren't trying to utilize their signets. Make sure they aren't trying to use their keystones or clue stones. All right, keep your opponents honest. You're not being a nice guy by letting them not use the rules. Just letting you know that's one of the things. Wow, that's insane. That's not fun. Oh yeah, Deadeye Navigator with Lavinia can be annoying. She's not going to be an unbeatable general. Also, the protection from red is cute. Only because it is CMC 4 or less. There is going to be a point in the game where Lavinia can't really do much. But the main thing she does, she's great against tokens. If you're really getting tired of getting stomped by a Rith the Awakener, blinking a Lavinia means that his tokens can't attack and can't even block. Fantastic card for that simple reason. Let's go on to Legion's Initiative. Red-White Enchantment, Mythic Rare Enchantment. Red creatures get +1/+0. White creatures get +0/+1. It's kind of like Argus cost, but instead of +2/+0 and +0/+1 and +0/+2. For red and white, and this is where it gets interesting, you get to exile Legion's Initiative. Then you exile all the creatures you control. At the beginning of the next combat, you get to return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control, and those creatures gain haste until end of turn. Really quickly, this card isn't that great if you're playing like a red-white token strategy. It is good if you're playing a red-white creature-centric strategy. If you're playing like red-white soldiers, I would definitely suggest trying out Legion Initiative. The only thing is your soldiers are mostly going to be white. I'm not trying to say this card is bad, because let's be honest, this card's pretty good, mostly for the exiling ability. You get to get around Wraths. Don't get distracted again by the Mythic Rare symbol. I'm going to say it again. This card is good. It's not fantastic. It's not balls out awesome. It's no Deadbridge chant. It's just good. Just good. I agree, Chaos. I would definitely play this in an Enter the Battlefield Center deck. And remember, they come back at the beginning of the next combat. Just putting it out there. So, hey, this is an interesting card. Let's talk about the Rakdos Mythic Rare, Master of Cruelties. 3 black and a red for a first strike, death touch, Horned Turtle. It's a 1/4, and it can only attack alone. Whenever he attacks a player and isn't blocked, that player's life total becomes 1. Master of Cruelties then assigns no combat damage this combat. So, let's bring this up in conjunction with another card. I just don't know how to spell Kalia. That's fun. Who would put 2 A's in a name? Anyway, so Kalia the Vast. For 1, white, black, red is a legendary human cleric. Whenever she attacks an opponent, you can put an angel, demon, or dragon creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. She was reprinted in Commander's Arsenal, but is mostly known for being in the Commander sets. If you play a Kalia of the Vast and you attack somebody, you can put Master Cruelties onto the battlefield. If you do, that player's life total does become 1, and then Kalia hits them for 2 damage, and they die. So, yeah. And this card is really good. It's going to be very annoying to play against when you play against Kalia, because you'll always have to have a blocker at the ready. Otherwise, if they have it in their hand, it's legitimately an oops, I win kind of card. Be scared, I guess? Yeah, be scared. It's not going to be fun to play against. It's not going to get banned. Don't say stuff like, oh, it needs to be banned because people playing Kalia can kill people on turn 4. It doesn't need to be banned. It's simply a very, very good card. Now, besides being some of the creepiest art in the set, this card's very good. For 3 white and a black, it's a thrall. That's interesting. It's a 3/3 thrall called Maw of the Obsidat. You can sacrifice a creature. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. I think a lot of people are actually sleeping on this card because the ability is very, very, very strong. Let me take you to a simple wedge-colored deck. Let's say something like Gov. Gov's a good situation. If I have a Maw of the Obsidat on the battlefield, and I have the 5/1/1s from Gov, and I swing at you with those 5/1/1s, and you block 1, I can immediately sacrifice that 1/1, and all my creatures get +1/+1. This card is actually rather good. I expect to see this played a lot in any sort of token strategy. This card you'll see in like the original Tesa, I'd assume, just because it's a very good way to swing out for the win if you have a lot of tokens at once. Whichever tokens they sack, you get to sacrifice, all your creatures get bigger. Card is rather good. Creepiest art since War Party. This art is just so it's not fun to play against. It's not fun to look at. How about that? So, hey, we got two generals side by side. Melik, is it Paragon? For 4 blue and a red is a legendary weird wizard. Couldn't be a better creature type unless it was a lizard wizard. 2, 4. You get to play with the top card of your library revealed, and you can cast the top card of your library if it's an instant or sorcery spell. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your library, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Melik's going to be a very fun general to run. Don't expect him to make a lap around the deck if you have a good instant or sorcery on the top of your library. If you have a bad instant or sorcery on the top of your library, I think people will let you slide. It's kind of like a future sight, but better because you get 2 of them. It's definitely a very, very interesting card. And I love interesting cards, especially when it comes to EDH. It just makes everything so much more fun. I gotta agree with Chaos Muse. I cannot wait to brew around Melik as a Paragon. He's gonna be super fun to play with. Probably just super fun to play against. He's gonna be the #1 general for all the crazy, wacky things you want to do. I mean, come on, guys. Like, you can have Warp World on the top of your library. You can have Warp World on the top of your library. Actually, that'd be really bad. Don't put Warp World in this deck if you're playing that many instances of sorceries. But it'd be cool. You can also play stuff like Galvanoth, and it should be a whole bunch of fun. I will agree with Base Boy. He is annoyingly good with Time Warp effects. Just really good effects with Time Warp effects. Just really good with them. The good thing is, it's a 2/4. So when you cast it for 6 mana on your 6th turn, or maybe 5th turn, because you're ramped in blue-red, I wouldn't expect it to come around if you got a Time Warp effect on the top of your library. I did talk about Possibility Storm. It's rather good against control decks, and it's good if you have a very homogeneous deck. But overall, it might just be relegated to those mono-red chaos decks. Mirko Vosk Minddrinker. I remember when this got spoiled, a bunch of people were like, "Woe is me, WotC hates Dimir." And a simple response, they don't hate Dimir. They just couldn't think of anything besides this. And it's really, a lot of people really like this ability. For 3, a blue and a black, for 2/4 flying vampire, he's a rare, and when he deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals 4 land cards, then puts those cards into his or her graveyard. It is a limited bomb because being able to Mind Funeral whenever you deal combat damage with this guy is very powerful. I don't expect to see this guy play in EDH that much as a commander. Maybe as a component of mill decks, that's where I really expect to see Mirko Vosk. But overall, he's a very lackluster commander. You can't really do much with him. Maybe, like, milling people. It's fun for some people. I personally think it's horrible. But some people like milling people. For the people that love mill, here's Mirko Vosk. That's about it. Yeah, he's a dub in EDH. Even giving it double strike probably won't get there. He's better until you've hit someone multiple times. Oh, that's good to know. Here's a really cool card. I'm actually only going to talk about Mork Burst because a lot of people were getting it wrong at our pre-release. Actually, just a lot of people were getting it wrong in general. You return the target creature from your graveyard to your hand, not to the library, but it still does damage equal to target creature player equal to the power of the card returned this way. There are better cards in EDH than Mork Burst, but if you want to run it, I'm not going to fault you for it. It's just okay. Howdy, variable. Nivik Cyclops is actually really cool. If you like this kind of deck, if you need another Kiln Fiend, Nivik Cyclops is here. I have seen people play Kiln Fiendish kind of decks, but overall, I wouldn't exactly expect to see him in your deck. I agree, Orange. I definitely agree. Here are 2, well, actually 3, if you can see Plasma Capture, fantastic EDH cards. Let's start with Notion Thief, because we're going in alphabetical order. 2 blue, black for 3/1 with Flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, that player skips that draw and you draw a card. It's a very confusing card. Thankfully, it's a 3/1 because the 1 power is easy to get rid of. Notion Thief is actually rather good. it doesn't just hose Sphinx's Revelation, which it does. It prevents your opponents from utilizing Phyrexian Arena, prevents your opponents from utilizing Haunted and Seeing Winds, prevents your opponents from utilizing Damia Sage of Stone, prevents your opponents. It is really good with the cards like Teferi Puzzle Box. It's fantastic if you want to play a card like Words of Wisdom. It's fantastic if you want to play a card like Prosperity. Like Notion Thief is just really good. Like really, really, really good. Really good. Again, it's a 3-1. I'm really happy it's a 3-1. If you're playing a controller Grixis deck and you have a large amount of control decks in your commander meta, and I don't say commander meta a lot, but I will for this one, definitely look into Notion Thief. It's a great thing to flash in at the end of someone's turn. And for one-on-one EDH, Notion Thief is a fantastic thing. It turns off Staff of Nin. Oh, that's fantastic. Sorry. Obdidat's Aid. For 3 white and a black, it's a rare source. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's in colors that really do like returning stuff from your graveyard to the battlefield. I really just can't wait to Obdidat's Aid Debtor's Knell. Like, that's the number one thing I want to do with this card. It's going to be a good card in EDH. It's not better than Beacon of Immortality, Beacon of Unrest, but it's a good card. A lot of times when you're playing white-black deck, you're playing very powerful enchantments. If someone destroys your Martyr's Cause, it's great to get it back with Obdidat's Aid. Yeah, Damia does draw you back up. I'll just bring it up here. You skip your draw step, but if you have fewer than 7 cards, you draw cards equal to the difference. With something like Notion Thief out, if your Damia opponent has 4 cards in hand, he goes up to 5 and you draw 2 cards. Very important to understand. And yeah, I guess you can get back Omniscience, but let's not be greedy. We're playing white-black with this card. Pilfered Plans is... We're not talking about Pilfered Plans. Plasm Capture! Plasm Capture! No. If your opponent has 4 cards in hand, he would draw 3 cards to go up to 7. He would only draw 1 card, and you'd draw 2. He'd go to 5. It's not in the draw step. It's just whenever they... Oh, it is what? Oh, I lied. It is draw step. No. Oh, wow. I misread this card. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one he or she draws in their draw steps. No, wait, no. I need to fact this guy. Also, if there's 2 Notion Thieves out, they cancel them. If there's 2 Notion Thieves out... Hey, look, the one ruling from Gatherer is that they would cancel each other out. Oh, wow. So they just don't draw anything. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one he or she draws in their draw step, that player skips that draw, and you draw a card. So with Damia out, because they don't draw during the draw step, they draw during the upkeep, they actually don't draw cards. Yeah, that's much better than I thought it was. Damn, Notion Thief, you crazy. You crazy, Notion Thief. Just absolutely crazy. Sweet. You draw all their cards. Good job, Notion Thief. Good job. Let's talk about Plasm Capture. Green, green, blue, blue instant. It's a rare. You get to counter target spell. Okay, for 4 mana, but at the beginning of your next pre-combat main phase, you get to add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. I really do like Plasm Capture. I think this card is rather good. It's not mana drain, but if you've ever played with mana drain, this ability is so strong. You get to get up on mana really quickly with this kind of ability, and especially if you're already playing green-blue, a deck that loves ramping out, a deck that loves putting lands on the battlefield, and a deck that loves playing huge fatties. Being able to counter even a 3-cost spell on turn 4, being able to cast an 8-drop on turn 5 is super strong. Yeah, it's not mana drain, but it's still good. It actually works in Maelstrom Wanderer. Yay! Ooh, Profit Loss is an expensive Zealous Persecution. Basically, for profit, creatures you control get +1/+1. For loss, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. Really good in draft. I've seen white-black token decks that like running Zealous. The card I just said, it's not that great, but it's okay. Just okay. Yeah, Zealous Persecution, thank you. Progenitor Mimic is a card that makes me really, really, really happy. Like, I cannot wait to play with this card. For 4 green-blue, we got a 0/0 Shapeshifter named Progenitor Mimic. It's a mythic rare, and you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it gains at the beginning of your upkeep. If that creature isn't a token, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. So, let's say you copy just anything, like, screw it, even Merfolk Looter, this guy's awesome. Don't clone your Progenitor Mimic, but yeah, this guy's really good. I can't wait to play him in the upkeep deck, because he's going to be fun. Also, just Terrasidoning every single turn. Onto the... Whoa, that is really good. I didn't even think of that. Enter the battlefield effects on Progenitor Mimic are silly. I'm going to Progenitor Mimic targeting your Luminant Primordial, exiling all the creatures. During every single upkeep, I'm going to get a Luminant Primordial, exiling 3 creatures. Man, this guy is actually... Wow, this guy is actually pretty silly, isn't he? He's pretty silly indeed. Good job, Progenitor Mimic. Good job. I may be in the minority. I like Protect and Serve. I feel like this guy will always be a blowout. But for 2 and a white, Protect, give something +2/+4. Serve, give something -6, -0. Play this guy in Limited. Don't play an EDH. But Limited, Protect and Serve is going to destroy combats. Just understand, Protect and Serve in combat, not fun. Period. Alright. Hey, Putrefy's back with new art. Kind of like the old art better. But hey, Putrefy's back. It's always been a stalwart in green-black EDH decks. Play it. It's good. It destroys artifacts and creatures. They can't be regenerated. It's a simple card, but it does what it needs to do. It's going to snap standard in half. I like the snap, because you can use it with Snapcaster Mage. So, guess which one of these 2 cards are better in EDH. Take a guess. I'm going to make a poll. Which one of these cards is better? For 30 seconds, we're going to put Ral Zarek in one corner, and we're going to put Ready and Willing in the other corner. Which card do you think is better? You can type Ral, or you can type Ready for Ready and Willing. I'm glad everyone agrees. Seriously. Holy crap, Ready and Willing is a blowout beyond all belief. Just putting it out there. Okay, I'm glad we all agree. I just wanted to do the poll so that everyone understands. Let's start with the card that obviously won. Ready and Willing. For 1 green and a white, and for 1 white and black, is a fuse card, a split card. 26-1. I like it. Ready. For 1 green white, creatures you control are indestructible this turn, and you get to untap each creature you control. Willing. For 1 white and a black, creatures you control get Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. Ready and Willing is a very, 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 very good card. It destroys cluttered board states. It laughs in the face of wrath effects. It's got so much utility. You can destroy Earl the Miststalkers that are attacking you. You can make sure you're not dying to Martial Coups. You can block out of nowhere and not die to a Krenko deck. Like, Ready and Willing does all the stuff you want. Just hedges your bets so well in a wedge color deck that I just absolutely love it. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Additionally, the art on the vampire is really cool. Ral Zarek, on the other hand, for 2 blue and red, is a mythic rare planeswalker. Comes into play with 4 loyalty counters. For +1, you get to tap target permanent, then untap another target permanent. Honestly, you're probably going to be untapping more than tapping with Ral Zarek, just because you can untap lands, which is awesome. For -2, you get to incinerate. Well, not even, you get to Searing Spear or something. You get to deal 3 damage to a creature or player. And the big one, the one everyone's excited for -7, you get to flip 5 coins. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. You get to flip 5 coins. You can take an extra turn after this one for each coin that comes up heads. More than likely, at least one will come up heads. He's okay. He's a very aggressive planeswalker because he can tap down blockers. But overall, he just lightning bolts stuff. I think Orange Stray Cat is definitely putting it there. He just lightning bolts things. That's a very strong ability. If you play with the Johnny Vengeance in EDH, you know how strong the lightning heals ability is. I'm not saying he's as strong as a Johnny Vengeance, but I am saying for what he's intending to do, on turn 4, if you cast Ral Zarek, you will be able to lightning bolt something and it'll live around. And then you'll be able to untap it or tap something. He's going to be a fun guy to use. Also, in any Crack's Thumb deck, Captain Joe has it right. Ral Zarek's for a whole bunch of fun. I got a Reap Intellect. I'm not really going to go over it. It's a really shitty mind twist. Just don't play an EDH, guys. Render Silent is a very interesting spell for those white-blue law mages that love preventing your opponents from doing stuff. It's a very good cancel. For white-blue-blue, it's an instant counter target spell. Its controller can't cast spells this turn. Not as good as Silence because you can't just silence them during upkeep. They do have to cast something, but it's still a rather good card. Okay, it's good against Relentless Rats, but come on. This would be a beautiful card foil, though. Sorry. Don't play Restore the Peace. I know a lot of people like cards like Restore the Peace. Honestly, they've already dealt you damage. You're not going to be doing anything productive by playing this card in EDH. Just want to get that out of the way. Raw Farm Skeleton is okay. I really wish he could block, but he can't block for a very good reason. It is a good way to mulch your library, and you still get a 4/1 plant skeleton. But overall, he's an inconsequential part of... He's the 23rd part. He's the 23rd card in your EDH deck. It's a card you're not hinging your EDH deck on, but it's not something you really want to cut immediately. Oh, it is just deal damage. It doesn't make it that much better. But, good point. It is just deal damage. So, we hit two very good... A very good rare and actually a rather good mythic rare. So, Ruik Thar the Unbowed. For 4 red and a green is a 6/6 Ogre Warrior. He's got Vigilance. He's got Reach. He attacks each turn if able. Oh, he attacks each turn if able. Never read that. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, Ruik Thar deals 6 damage to that player. Here's the thing. Your opponents are going to have non-creature spells. And more than likely, someone's going to have less than 5 power on the battlefield. Ruik Thar is a very good general. If you can resolve him, which you should be able to do in a red-green deck, Ruik Thar is very, very, very powerful. It's one of those it's one of those. It lends to one of those decks where you brew around it. You put a lot of creatures in the deck. You put a small amount of non-creature spells, and you're just doming people for 6 when they're trying to cast their spells. Make sure you have mana ramp in this deck because people will kill Rurik Thar. He puts a kibosh in a control player's dreams, and he's a control player's nightmares. Seriously, Rurik Thar is a very, very, very good card. Especially with Mile. I really like Rurik Thar in a Mile the Anima deck. It's got more than 5 power, guys. It's a good thing. Let's talk about Savageborn Hydra. So the first time I saw this guy, I wasn't that high on it, but I'm liking it more and more. Also, really good Raymond Swanson art. Just putting it out there. Really good art. It's a double striking 0/0, but it enters a battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is equal to the X you paid, and that X is red and green. And for 1 red-green hybrid, put a +1/+1 counter on Savageborn Hydra. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. The sorcery part is on there for a very good reason. If you could do that at instant speed, it'd be very, very, very good. I'm still not that high on Savageborn Hydra. I understand it's a very good card. It doesn't have trample. The minute you give this guy trample, he does a lot of damage. He's going to be chump blocked like no else. He's still a very good card. He's a must-answer threat from your opponents. It's uncopyable. Like, your opponents can't just copy it and get a huge Hydra as well, which is actually a very strong part of the card that a lot of people miss. Especially when it comes to stuff like Hydras. If it's got a 0/0 in the toughness, when your opponent copies it with a clone, it's a 0/0 and it frickin' dies. Just Savageborn Hydra is going to be a good card. It's a middling of the pack creature in EDH, but it's something that honestly red-green kind of needed. I like it a lot. It's a good place to put mana when it comes to red-green. And that's actually something red-green was lacking. So, go, Savageborn Hydra. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to cracking some. Can't wait for it. Don't play Showstopper. It's not good. For 1 black and red, it's an uncommon instant. Until end of turn, creature you control gain. When it dies, it deals 2 damage to target creature and opponent controls. Doesn't deal damage to players. It only deals damage to creatures. So after Wrath, it does nothing. The best case scenario when casting Showstopper is that your opponent just overloaded Mizium Mortars. Like, that's it. Just if it had hit players, it would have been so much better. I agree with Gin and Juice here. I would have loved for this card to hit players, but it only hits creatures, so we leave it at that. Sing Collector is actually probably going to be pretty good in 1-on-1 EDH, but for EDH, it doesn't do that much. That's a long way to go to try and make a card good. Sire of Insanity. For 4 black and a red, it is a rare 6/4 demon. This is a crawworm, guys. At the beginning of each end step, each player discards his or her hand. I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. I won't be playing EDH tonight. There's currently a bug on Magic Online where if someone dies, the game ends, which is annoying. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through Dragon's Maze, and I'm just going to have fun going through it, because there's a lot of really fun cards in here. Sire will get you killed. It's definitely not fun to play with or against, but if you're the one playing Sire of Insanity, you're going to like playing it. I think it's kind of cool. It's got a whole Diablo feel around it, which is also really awesome. Like, he reminds me of Abzadoth in Diablo 3. Just putting it out there. It's even a demon. It's insanity. But hey, it's a very powerful effect. There are going to be red-black decks that can take advantage of it. So when your opponent plays Sire of Insanity, understand that not only are you losing your hand every single damn turn, but they're going to be able to take advantage of it. I'm looking forward to playing this card in a deck like Malphagor. I feel like this card is perfect for Malphagor, so watch out for Sire. Species Scourger is actually pretty cool. It reminds me, there was recently a card in M13 that returned creatures to your hand in green. This does the same thing, but in green-blue. I'm not saying it's amazing, but it's pretty cool. We also get a Hasty 3-1 for black and a red, which is kind of interesting. Roaring Primadox, thank you. So, I like how all the legendary creatures are coming in pairs. Tajik, Blade of the Legion, 2 red, white, legendary human soldier. He's a 2/2 and he's a rare. He's also indestructible. So already we have our replacement for Darksteel Mirror. Very important. Additionally, he's got Battalion. Whenever Tajik and at least 2 other creatures attack, Tajik gets +5/+5 until end of turn. It's not always going to be a 7/7 for 4. Sometimes it will be. A lot of people are talking about he might replace Aurelia in Aurelia decks. The only thing he's going to replace is if you're playing a dedicated soldier deck. I would definitely rather have Tajik, Blade of the Legion than Aurelia, just because he's a soldier, and soldiers always have a bunch of dudes. He's going to be super annoying to play against. Unless you're exiling him, he's not getting off the battlefield, and he's just going to keep hitting you, he's just going to keep hitting you, and he's just going to keep hitting you. He's probably one of the best blockers in the entire game, so... I mean, he's indestructible. What else can you say? A lot of people say the reason he's a 2/2 is because he's got that weird-looking frickin' sword, and he gets +5/+5 because when he attacks with 2 other dudes, they give him a sword that actually works. He should be fun. Oh, that's cool. Polendino. Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. For 5 white and a black, is a vigilance protection from creatures 4/4. She's also a human advisor. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, destroy that creature. Put a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. I've had some time to think about Teysa since it first got spoiled, and we talked about it when it was spoiled. The more I look at this card, the better she looks. The fact that she's got vigilance and protection from creatures means she's usually hitting for 4 every single turn, barring Blazing Archon. Like, she's always getting in there, and she's always back on defense. The No Mercy ability on Teysa is super strong. I'm sure you already know this, but if you've ever played against No Mercy, that card's fucking annoying to play against. Like, all your creatures just die. Playing a Teysa will make you the target of the table. Everyone will want to kill you. Rarely, very, very, very rarely, will she actually survive a round at the table. But if she does survive a round at the table, expect to get focused. Teysa is not fun to play against. You do not blame your opponent for killing Teysas. They're hard to kill. Overall, I really do like her because she imbues the spirit of a white-black controlling creature. She makes it so that your opponents just no longer have fun, and she slaps them around, which is pretty awesome. Also, apparently she's hobbled, and that's why she has this cane in the picture. I don't know how true that is. I'm going off of what I've learned from the mana pool here, but hey, Teysa is a very cool card. I'm really looking forward to playing her. I will say, as opposed to having her as a general, I think she is a good 7-drop in just a white-black, in a controlling white-black deck. If you're not going for the mosquito-y, extorty version of white-black, and you're just going for powerful creatures, if you're going for cards like Divinity of Pride, Serra Ascendant, Blazing Archon, if you're going for that mythic rare Orzhov creature vampire from before, if that's the deck you're making, Teysa immediately fits into it. I really, really, really do like Teysa. Also, Angel of Despair. Like, there is a white-black deck that plays Debtor's Knell, Sheoldred, Angel of Despair, Obsidat, Ghost Council, this Teysa, old Teysa. Like, there is a white-black deck that's just filled of problematic creatures that your opponents just can't deal with. So, in that deck, Teysa shines. Yeah, she doesn't fit in your current Teysa decks, by the way. Tithe Drinker is going to see play in the Extort decks. Besides that, it's a 2/1 vampire. It's there for Extort, guys. Toil in Trouble is actually pretty cool. I like Toil in Trouble. Avacyn sounds good in that deck, man. That sounds like a really fun deck. For 2 and a black, target player draws 2 cards and they lose 2 life. And for 2 and a red, trouble deals damage to target player equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. There already are the Grixis discard decks with stuff like Magrim, Liliana's Caress, Burning Inquiry, Underworld Dreams, Wheel and Deal. Like, those decks already exist, and Toil and Trouble immediately fits into them. I know those decks are always calling out for cards because they aren't exactly complete yet. Toil and Trouble fits so well into that deck archetype. Expect to see it play in EDH a whole bunch. And most of the times, honestly, they're just going to draw 2 cards and deal you 6. Sekar is a good reason. The ones I usually see is Gwendolyn DeCourcy, because, she's a nice lady. Usually those decks are the hand manipulation discard decks. So hey, Tristani. Man, there are so many good freaking cards. Alright, Tristani Summoner. For 5 green and a white is a 1/1 Elf Shaman. Another card that didn't need to be an elf, but is an elf just because we can make it a freaking elf. When she enters the battlefield, put a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance on the battlefield, a 3/3 green centaur creature token, and a 4/4 green rhino creature token with trample onto the battlefield. She's just fantastic in every single way. I know she costs 7, but she comes off a Revel Arc really easily. She gets flickered so easily. She's a cone of creatures in a creature. Just it's so cool. It's so much fun to play Tristani Summoner. She seems like so much fun. I really can't wait to put her into decks. Do understand that 7 mana is kind of prohibitive. If you're trying to run her in a deck that isn't running stuff like Mana Reflection or isn't running stuff like Mirari's Wake, it will be a chore getting up to cast Tristani Summoner. Overall, though, it's a whole bunch of fun. You can do so much with it. Imagine it in a Bant deck with Deadeye Navigator. Shit gets insane. Oh, wow. Oh. So, another card that gets better with Deadeye Navigator. Because we needed more of them. Man. Deadeye Navigator is really good. Let's talk about Turn and Burn. I actually think Turn and Burn's a rather good card in EDH. Let me explain why. For 2 and blue, you get Turn. Target creature loses all abilities and becomes an 0/1 red weird until end of turn. And Burn, for a single 1 in a red, deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Because when you fuse, you go left to right. This kills any creature in EDH that doesn't have protection from blue. I really, really, really do like this card. Not only does it get rid of Thragtusk in Standard, which I know a lot of people don't really care about, but that card is going to start making an impact in EDH once it lowers price. It gets around dying triggers, it gets around Unearth, it gets around Persist, it gets around a lot of things that make so many creatures annoying as hell. I'm really looking forward to playing Turn and Burn. It's also an unconditional removal spell in blue and red. I think that's the most important part about Turn and Burn. Usually if you're looking for an unconditional removal spell in blue and red, they don't exist. You have to Prophetic Bolt something, you have to hit it a bunch of times with Lightning Bolts, or now you can actually Turn and Burn, which is awesome. You do have to target so it doesn't get around Hexproof. Good point. But besides that, it's good to go. Pro Red works? Okay, good to know. So hey guys, they reprinted Armadillo Cloak, which is awesome because it's Armadillo Cloak. 1 green. Wow, this art's horrible. Sorry, it's not horrible. It's just not the best. Okay, let's just pull it up and gather and check. Alright, come on. Where are you at? Alright. Nope. This is way too many rules. when you fuse it a single multicolored spell. Alright. The spell is always multicolored. It does not get around protection. Alright, I'm going to go with it does not get around protection. So, Unflinching Courage for 1 green white, enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has trample and lifelink. The reason why people in chat are saying it's not as good as Armadillo Cloak is because Armadillo Cloak actually gave it the janky form of lifelink, so that if something already had lifelink, if you put Armadillo Cloak on it, you actually gain twice the life. I still like Unflinching Courage. I think it's a very strong card, and it's going to be very strong in draft. And let's be honest, Armadillo Cloak is EDH playable, and I can't wait to play it. Let's talk about Viral's the Scar Striped. By the way, Boix, I 100% agree with you. It's better than being on the stack. But it's still a very cool thing to have. It's still a very cool card to have exist. Viral's the Scar Striped. For 1 black and a green, has a bunch of rule of sex as well, but it's for a good reason, because it's a 2/2 Troll Warrior. Each creature card in your graveyard has Scavenge. Additionally, the Scavenge cost is equal to its mana cost. Basically, when you use Scavenge, if you don't know from RTR, you get to exile a creature card from your graveyard by paying its mana cost, and you put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that card's power onto target creature. Scavenge only has a sorcery. Additionally, you can sacrifice another creature to regenerate Viral's the Scar Striped. Viral's is apparently 12 feet tall. As a 12-foot warrior, he's obviously well designed as a 2/2. Good point. Alright, so Viral's is really freaking powerful. He's not overpowered, but he's very powerful. So I'm gonna do a quick in before we hear about Death's Shadow and Phyrexian Dreadnought. They're very, very, very good. For those that don't understand, Death's Shadow for a single black is a 13/13. Usually when you cast it, it dies, but because it still retains being a 13/13 in the graveyard, you can scavenge it onto Viral's to get a 15/15 on turn 4, which is rather strong. Same with Dreadnought. Dreadnought is a 1 mana 12/12, but it has an activated ability that makes it sacrifice itself. You don't have the mana to pay for it, so you can already put those +1/+1 counters onto Viral's. I personally think the most important part about Viral's the Scar Striped is the sacrifice another creature, regenerate Viral's the Scar Striped. Sacrifice effects are super, super important when it comes to EDH. Just undeniably important. The fact that you can have a general that costs 3 mana, has an insane ability, and comes with a sacrifice effect makes it bar none one of the most powerful generals we've seen in a very, very, very long time. Watch out for Viral's the Scar Striped. He's gonna kill you more often than not. This card's very, very, very strong, and he may just be one of the most. He may be the most powerful Golgari legendary creature we'll be seeing for a very long time. Hopefully he is, because I don't want to see more guys more powerful than this guy. This dude just kills stuff. He just kills everything. It looks pretty. Voice of Resurgence. Anyways. Actually, we're not going to talk about Viashana First Blade because it's just a 4/4 soldier. It's got cool art though. Good job, Matt Stewart. Good job. Yeah. So, Voice of Resurgence for X and a white. Okay. Just really quickly talking about characteristic defining abilities. They do apply in graveyards. So a great example of this is let's say I'm searching my library for a creature with 4 or less power, and there's a Dungrove Elder in my library, and I have 3 forests on the battlefield. I can find Dungrove Elder. If I have 5 forests on the battlefield, I can't find Dungrove Elder. It's got 5 power. It's a characteristic defining ability. It's viewable in all zones. Just putting it out there. Voice of Resurgence! Green, white, elemental 2/2. It's a mythic rare. It's not legendary. It's not legendary. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn, or when it dies, put a green and white elemental creature token onto the battlefield with. This creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. It's only good. It's not too good. You're asking a lot to have your opponent cast a spell during your turn. You honestly are. More than likely, you're going to use it for the when it dies effect to get that token. I can't reiterate this enough. It's really great after a Wrath, and that might be the only reason why this card is good. People rarely, and I mean rarely, cast spells during your turn. It's not the best card in the set. It honestly isn't. It's good. For EDH, it's good. But it's not amazing. It's just good. I think, is this our last legendary creature? It should be, right? Hey, it is! Wow, we're almost done. Varel of the Holclade is our last legendary creature. And he's actually a pretty cool one. He's a green-blue human merfolk. He's a horned turtle for 3, so that's perfect stats, let's be honest. For green and blue, you can tap him. For each counter and target artifact, creature, or land, put another of those counters on that permanent. I really do like Varel the Holclade. He just doubles counters, which is pretty awesome. He's going to be fun to build around just because you can get extra really stupid counters. A lot of people are going to play this by doubling divinity counters, which honestly is a good idea. Also, Darksteel Reactor is a thing. But hey, for all the Holclade, he's going to be a very, very, very fun deck to build. You do need a counter to be on the permanent. That's very important, and don't forget that fact. If the permanent doesn't already have counters, Varel does shit. Watch out with this guy with Spike Weaver. That's going to be annoying as hell. He's going to be fun. He's just going to be fun. Oh, Magosi the Water Veil doesn't work. No, it doesn't work at all. But it could be cool. It could be cool. Are there any infinite combos in Standard? I have no idea. Oh, yeah, there is. The one infinite combo in Standard is you play a Boros Reckoner, you play an Azorius Charm. You play a Boros Charm to make it, and you force it to deal damage to itself. And you give it lifelink, then you force it to deal damage to itself at an infinite amount of time to give you infinite life. Ta-da! Also, you can reanimate things at infinitum as well. So there's 2 infinite things. Just putting it out there. And yeah, the Humans Reanimate deck is also an infinite combo. So if you like playing infinite combos, you can play it in Standard. I am hovering on War Leader's Helix, not just because the art's actually pretty cool, but also because, although it costs 4 mana, this effect is good. It kills a lot of generals, and it gets you the life back. If you have a red-white deck and you're looking for more removal, you might as well play a War Leader's Helix. It's good. It's not like a 23rd card. I still think it's just good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Don't play Warp. I mean, you can play Warp Physique, but don't expect it to be good all the time. Just really quickly, remember it'll be 1 less than the amount of cards you have in your hand. Wear and Tear is our last fuse card, and actually a pretty good one. For 1 red, you can destroy an artifact, and for a single white, you can destroy an enchantment, which means for 1 red-white, you can destroy an artifact and enchantment. It's no Decimate, but hey, if you're playing red-white, this is actually a good thing to do. I think the last one we can talk about... Hey, yeah, let's talk about Zeratar Ancient. So, first of all, the art's actually pretty cool. But, for 3 red and a green, this is a rare 7/5 beast, so it's a 5 mana 7/5. And, whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana to her mana pool of any type that land produced. It gives everyone a Heartbeat of Spring. I like to talk about these kind of cards just because a lot of people misevaluate them. If your deck can't take the most advantage of this ability, then you shouldn't run it. I can see this card being run in a Roshin deck, but beyond that, I would really stay away from running Zeratar Ancient. If you're just running it in an aggressive red-green deck, if you're running it in a Beast deck, it's honestly not going to do that much. You might want to stay away from Zeratar Ancient unless you're undoubtedly sure you're the best deck for that Mana Flare ability. If you're not, don't touch it. Just run away. Giving your opponents this ability is too good if you can't take the most advantage of it. So everyone's clamoring about this Zeratar Druid guy for limited. Red Green Human Druid 1/1. He's a Llanowar Elfish dude. Whenever you tap him, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. You have to tap it for mana. Okay? Seems good. I guess it's good. It doesn't it just ping them for 1? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. So the last thing we get to talk about are the clue stones, and it's actually a really nice addition. I understand it's a common. All right, I might just be missing it. I'm gonna go to the clue stones. It's the last part. So the clue stones for 3 mana. It's a common artifact. You can tap it to add a red or a white to your mana pool, and for a red and a white, you can tap it to sacrifice Boros Cluestone to draw a card, which is great. And yes, you can just tap them for mana and not cast something to deal 1. Boros the Cluestones I actually really do like. 3 mana is close to the threshold of too expensive for this ability just to tap to add mana. A lot of people play Darksteel Ingot to get around Shatterstorm effects. The one thing about the Cluestones is that they're not dead draws late in the game. The same reason why Mindstone is really good is the same reason why a card like Dimir Cluestone or Boros Cluestone are so good in their respective decks. Boros Cluestone gives me that early pump I need in order to play a Blinding Angel early. But then when it's like turn 8 and I don't need the extra land, I can just draw a card with them. I really do like the Cluestones. I think they're rather good. Don't auto-include them into every single dual-color deck you have, and in no reason am I going to be doing that either. But as a very cheap way to have mana fixing, the Cluestones are a fantastic addition. Really glad to see them here. Someone asked about Possibility Storm. We talked about them earlier. It's really good against control decks because it's really hard to counter your spell if you don't know if you're going to flip into a counterspell. It's probably going to be relegated though to the Chaos Red decks, which there are people. There are people that love Chaos Red decks, and so those people are going to love those cards. Those are the Cluestones. Gates are still here, and there's one last card we should probably talk about, and that's the first card spoiled from it, and that's Maze's End. It's a mythic rare land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add 1 mana to your mana pool, and for 3 mana, you can tap. Return Maze's End to its owner's hand, search your library for a gate card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. If you control 10 or more gates with different names, you win the game. It's okay. You're going to see a lot of people in 5-color decks jam this in there to be cute, but by jamming this in there to be cute, you're also changing 10 of your lands into 10 come-into-play tapped gates. Those cards could be gaining you life as refuges. They could not be coming into play tapped as dual lands. Like, if you're playing Maze's End, understand you are taking on the liability of running 10 gates in your deck if you're playing 5 colors. Now, if you're playing 3 colors, you can use Maze's End as a way to tutor up a gate, as a way to tutor up one of 3 gates, which could be useful. But understand it comes with a cost. The ability to be cute with Maze's End is also compounded by the fact that you have to run 10 gates of different names. And honestly, gates aren't the best lands in EDH. You can just make them snow. Like, are we going to see more gates see play with Maze's End? Expect to see more gates in 5-color decks. A decent Thawing Glaciers is going pretty far, but it is a decent Thawing Glaciers because it actually taps for mana. It also costs 3, though, to get that gate from your library. It takes up the land. Like, it runs into all the bad things with Thawing Glaciers, and then doesn't combo with Stone Seed or Hierophant. So, what does it really do? It really does nothing. It's much worse than Thawing Glaciers. Overall, after going through all the cards I'm the most excited for out of this set. Where are you at? Nope. Come on. You're up here. So much scrolling. Deadbridge Chant. Yeah, Chaos. Deadbridge Chant is undeniably the card I'm looking the most forward to out of this set. It reminds me of when Mythics first came out in Alara, and they were all silly, and they would put 8/8 worms onto the battlefield when you tapped them, and they were indestructible dragons, and they were stupid sphinxes, and they did stupid things. Deadbridge Chant imbues the ability of Mythics. Like, it's a perfect Mythic rare. It's a perfect Mythic rare. It's rare to see one up here. It's rare. It's sadly becoming more and more rare to see a Mythic rare that's Mythic rare for a good damn reason. And Deadbridge Chant is Mythic rare because it's fantastic. It's a fantastically created card that does something fun and interesting that I haven't seen before in a card. And for that, and that's why I love this card. I just can't wait to play it. I can't wait for it. Like, if I were to make a top 5 number 1 is easily Deadbridge Chant. I mean, like, Boros Battle Shaper is also up there. Like, that card's going to be annoying as hell. Definitely Pontiff of Blight, Valrals, and probably... There was a Fuse card I was really excited about. Where you at? I gotta stop scrolling like that. Progenitor Mimic. Progen. Varals. Pontiff. And Ready and Willing. Yeah. Those would be the 5 cards I am most looking forward to playing with out of this set. What's the card you're most excited for? I'd actually love to hear. Like, what's your favorite card of the set? Yeah, Mythics didn't start in Lorwyn, just Planeswalkers did. Deadbridge Chant. High 5 on Deadbridge Chants. Progenitor Mimic looks like a whole bunch of fun. It's in my top 5 for a reason. I can't really get behind Voice. It seems fun. It's going to be great in Legacy. Mirko Vosk is a pretty fun card. I like Mirko Vosk. Rurik Thar? Rurik Thar's a good guy. You like Advent? I'm going to hate playing against Advent Worm. 100% going to hate playing against Advent Worm. Advent of the Worm. But it's a damn good card. But yeah, Progenitor Mimic. Let's be honest. That card is going to be so much fun. Ooh, Lavinia. Lavinia is an interesting call. Nivik Cyclops. I know there's a lot of people that love, like, I have a blue-red deck that has Wee Dragonauts in it. Nivik Cyclops got me right in the heart, too. That guy's pretty cool. Dragon Shift, I just wish it didn't take away the abilities. If it didn't take away the abilities, I wouldn't be so... That's a good point, Haas. Rouse Eric seems fantastic in Cube. I didn't even think of that. That's really smart, actually. Rouse Eric might be one of the best Cube cards I've ever heard of. You already picked up 4 Advent of the Worms? That's insane. Ixava? Ixava is going to be a very interesting deck. She might be a deck I really want to build just because it might be fun. Like, it's so aggressive. It's so needlessly aggressive. It's the perfect... Okay, it's a very good Rakdos General. Not the perfect one, because let's be honest, Rakdos Lord of Riots might be the perfect Rakdos General. But Ixava is just so blindly aggressive. It's really, really, really cool. Someone mentioned Obsidat's Aid. I feel like Obsidat's Aid is going to be a card I want to get like 2 of, because I know I'm going to be running it in most of my white-black decks. And if you like Hydras, you're going to love Savageborn Hydra. I gotta give you credit there. Savageborn Hydra is a fantastically made Hydra. Is it better than Apocalypse Hydra? It might be better than Apocalypse Hydra. I'm not too sure. Apocalypse had the ability to get rid of creatures, though, so... I don't know. Someone mentioned... Akoban mentions Tajik. I think Tajik of the Legion is actually a pretty cool card, just because its battalion ability is so close to being parasitic. A parasitic mechanic is something like arcane, which only works with itself. That battalion ability forces you to have battalion. And it's going to be such an interesting deck to build. Like, I'm going to want creatures that turn into lands. I might run Darksteel Mirror just to be silly. Like, that seems fun. Far and Away is also pretty nuts. Like, Far and Away is going to be a whole bunch of fun to play against people. I got to check one card. Also, why? Oh, let's see. What is this card again? Baron's Spite? Yeah. By the way, Far and Away is almost like Baron's Spite, but for a single extra mana, you, Oh, it's choose, too. Yeah. They get the choice. So if you really like Far and Away, try out Baron's Spite. Just putting it out there. It's actually a pretty good card. At least it's better than Cruel Edict. Oh, wow. Someone actually likes Sire of Insanity? Jesus. I do not want to play against Sire of Insanity. You can play that all you want. Let me know when you sit down at the table. I'll run away. Far and Away is an instant. Yeah, Far and Away seems better than Baron's Spite, but Baron's Spite is still a very controlling card and actually pretty fun. Weird art, but Therese Nielsen as well. Ooh, we got an Armed and Dangerous fan. Yo, Armed and Dangerous. I'm going to be playing that guy in Borborygmos for years to come. And Aetherling's going to be fun. Like, I feel like Aetherling is going to be very annoying. Thankfully, it doesn't keep enchantments or artifacts attached to it. Like, they wouldn't put that on the card anyways, but I'm glad they didn't. It seems fun. Good night, man. I'm actually going to hit the sack as well. We only played one game of EDH because MTGO is currently bugged. When we beat someone in our multiplayer game, the whole entire game crashed. So that was super fun. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. That'll be that's the DGM set review, which was super fun. I really, really, really do think Dragon's Maze is bringing a lot of really fun and interesting cards into EDH. I really can't wait to play with a lot of them. I can wait to play with Death to the Deathless. I really don't want to play against this card. Like, I really don't want to play against this card. No matter how beautiful it's going to look in foil, I really don't want to play against this card.